as we drift together into tonight's story, let your mind ease, your breath find a gentle rhythm, and your heart settle into peace. Tonight, under a sky painted with stars, we journey to a kingdom wrapped in the soft silence of midnight. It's here, in this enchanted stillness, that Princess Aria walks alone, her gaze drawn to the vast, glittering sky, her spirit alive with the mysteries of the night. As the world quiets, let the warmth of these whispered tales guide you, gently carrying you closer to dreams. Close your eyes if you like, and let go. Tonight's adventure awaits. The kingdom was quiet under the shroud of midnight, wrapped in the soft embrace of starlight that spilled from a cloudless sky. On nights such as these, Princess Aria found herself restless, wandering the castle grounds, unable to shake a feeling that tugged at her heart with a gentle but relentless pull. The gardens stretched out beneath her in pools of silver and shadow, and the stars, so many, so bright, seemed almost close enough to reach out and touch. She felt as if they watched her, thousands of tiny, patient eyes keeping secrets that, perhaps, they longed to share. Aria had always felt a strange connection to the night sky. She could spend hours gazing upward, tracing the constellations with her eyes, her heart swelling with questions for which she had no words. But tonight, something was different. The stars weren't just looking back. They seemed alive, pulsing faintly, with a rhythm she'd never seen before. The princess stopped at the edge of the garden, standing still as the world fell into a deeper silence. The wind itself hushed, as if in reverence. Then, faintly at first, she heard it, a low, resonant hum drifting down from above, so deep and so otherworldly it was almost inaudible. The sound didn't seem to come from any direction, but rather from everywhere at once, wrapping around her, seeping into her mind like the murmur of a forgotten dream. She followed the sound through the winding paths of the garden, her bare feet brushing against dew-laden grass. Her pulse quickened, and her breath came in shallow, excited bursts, though she couldn't explain why. The stars seemed to brighten with every step, casting a path of silver that led her to the foot of the castle's tallest tower, which loomed like a shadowed sentinel against the night. Aria hesitated, glancing up. The tower stretched so high, its peak seemed to touch the heavens themselves. But the hum grew stronger, a beckoning call that she could no longer resist. Steeling herself, she stepped inside and began to climb the narrow stone staircase, her footfalls echoing softly in the silence. As she ascended, the air grew colder, filled with a tingling electric charge that prickled her skin. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest, and with each turn of the winding staircase, the feeling intensified until it was almost as if she were carrying starlight inside her, lighting her way. At last, she reached the top. She stepped out onto the open platform, and the night unfolded before her. A vast, silent ocean of stars stretching endlessly into the unknown. The view took her breath away, and for a moment she was only a girl in awe of the world's beauty. But then as her gaze swept across the heavens, she saw it. Hovering just above the tower, almost too faint to notice, was a strange spectral shape, like the outline of a door drawn in threads of stardust. It was vast, spanning the width of the tower, and it shimmered with a light both otherworldly and achingly familiar. The gate pulsed softly, matching the hum that still thrummed in the air, a beacon of something just out of reach. Aria felt a thrill of fear and wonder twist together inside her. Could this be real? She had heard tales of such things as a child, whispered stories of realms that lay hidden beyond the stars, places only glimpsed by those who dared to seek them. Yet she had never truly believed them, until now. The gate hung there, silent and still, as if waiting for her to decide. She took a hesitant step forward, her hand rising unconsciously, fingers stretching out as though to touch it. The air around the gate felt thick and charged, pressing down on her, like the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets. She could feel its pull, a gentle but insistent invitation urging her closer. In that moment, beneath the watchful gaze of the stars, Aria felt something stir within her. A longing, a curiosity that she knew would never be satisfied if she turned away now. This was more than a moment. It was a calling, one she felt she had been born to answer. And so, with the faintest whisper, she made a promise to herself and to the silent, waiting stars. She would return. For days after her discovery, Aria drifted through the halls of the castle like a ghost, her thoughts consumed by the vision she had seen. She spent hours alone, poring over ancient scrolls and half-forgotten tomes buried deep within the castle library. The pages were delicate with age, the ink faded to the faintest whispers of stories. But the words that remained spoke of wonders beyond imagination. And sometimes, just sometimes, they hinted at the existence of another world, one that lay hidden beyond a gate in the sky. The scrolls were cryptic, filled with language that twisted and turned in on itself, as if the truth had been deliberately hidden. But certain phrases leapt out at her, like fragments of a half-remembered song. The celestial gate, visible only to those who are unburdened by certainty, a threshold woven from stars and shadows. The words felt familiar somehow, as though they were echoes of something she had always known. She could feel them burrowing deep into her heart, sparking a desire she could neither understand nor resist. Aria became certain of one thing: she must find her way through the gate. And so, as the nights passed and the moon waxed toward fullness, she prepared herself for the journey. She spoke to no one of her plans, kept her intentions hidden, even from the servants who whispered of her absent-mindedness and faraway stares. This was a secret too vast and fragile to share. and even if she tried, she doubted anyone would believe her. The gate was hers alone to seek, her destiny alone to follow. At last the night of the full moon arrived, cloaking the world in silver light. The stars were out in full, stretching across the heavens in a luminous web that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The hum was back, faint but unmistakable, reverberating through the air like the distant tolling of a bell. Aria felt it in her bones, drawing her upward, urging her forward. Once more she ascended the tower, her footsteps quick and quiet, as if afraid that any sound might shatter the delicate spell that had woven itself around her. The stairs felt endless, but she climbed them with unwavering resolve, her heart a steady beat of anticipation. Finally she emerged onto the platform, and the night unfolded before her, vast and silent and eternal. The gate was there, waiting, its outline more distinct than before, shimmering with a soft, ethereal glow that seemed to pulse in time with her own heartbeat. It was no longer a shadowy mirage, but a presence, solid and undeniable, hovering between the stars as if woven from their very light. For a moment, Aria hesitated, a tremor of doubt flickering through her. She could feel the enormity of what lay before her, the weight of a choice that would forever alter the course of her life. The gate was more than a passage. It was a threshold, a dividing line between everything she had ever known and a world that lay beyond comprehension. But then, as she gazed into the depths of the gate, she felt a strange calm settle over her. The stars seemed to watch her, patient and unblinking, as if offering silent encouragement. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her hand outstretched, fingers brushing the edge of the gate. A sensation like cool fire washed over her, tingling from her fingertips to the very core of her being. The air around her seemed to ripple, bending and twisting as though the fabric of reality itself was shifting. The hum intensified, filling her ears, her mind, her very soul, until she could no longer tell where the sound ended and she began. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the sensation, letting it carry her forward, deeper and deeper into the unknown. And then, with a final gentle pulse, the gate opened. The world around her fell away, dissolving into a cascade of light and shadow, swirling together in patterns too intricate to comprehend. Aria felt herself pulled through the veil, carried by a force both gentle and inexorable, as if she were a leaf caught in a cosmic wind. When she opened her eyes, she found herself standing in a land unlike any she had ever seen. The sky above was a deep, velvety indigo, studded with stars that burned brighter and closer than they ever had in her world. Trees with leaves of silver and gold stretched out in all directions, their branches swaying in a breeze that carried the faint scent of something ancient and otherworldly. Rivers of liquid moonlight wound through the landscape, casting an otherworldly glow that painted everything in shades of silver and shadow. Aria took a step forward, her feet sinking into the soft, dreamlike ground. The world around her was silent, yet filled with a kind of music that resonated just beyond the reach of hearing, a melody that seemed woven into the very fabric of the realm. She felt a thrill of awe and wonder twist inside her, mingling with the faintest tremor of fear. This was the realm beyond, the place she had glimpsed only in dreams and whispered stories. She was here, and somehow she knew she was not alone. The realm beyond lay before Aria in silence, so profound it felt like a dream, teetering on the edge of consciousness. She could feel it around her, humming softly in the air, a music older than memory. Every step she took felt heavy, as though the ground itself were pulling her into its secrets, guiding her deeper into the heart of this strange land. The trees stretched toward the sky, their branches a lacework of silver and gold that seemed to capture fragments of starlight, casting them down in pools of luminescent shadow. The rivers of liquid moonlight wound their way through the landscape, flowing with a gentle, hypnotic rhythm that beckoned her forward, each bend concealing some new wonder just beyond sight. As she walked, Aria noticed faint shapes flitting at the edge of her vision, figures that seemed to melt into the shadows before she could fully perceive them. They moved like wraiths, silent and ethereal, leaving trails of light in their wake, as if their very essence was woven from the remnants of forgotten stars. She caught only glimpses, an outstretched hand, a face half veiled in shadow, eyes that glowed with a depth of knowledge too vast for words. At first, she felt a twinge of fear, but as the figures continued to watch her from a respectful distance, she sensed no malice in their presence. Instead, they felt like guardians, witnesses to her journey, ancient beings bound to this land who knew her purpose better than she did herself. There was a gravity to their silence, a kind of solemn acknowledgement of the path she was walking. The further she ventured, the stranger the world became. Shapes and forms twisted in and out of focus, as if reality itself were fluid, bending around her in response to her thoughts and feelings. The air was thick with the scent of starlit flowers, cool and sweet, mingling with an undercurrent of something darker, something she couldn't quite place, like the echo of a forgotten sorrow. It was then that Aria came upon a vast lake, its surface smooth and unbroken, reflecting the star-filled sky above with eerie clarity. The lake stretched far beyond sight, and at its center rose a structure, an immense hall built from what appeared to be pure twilight, walls that shimmered with every shade between shadow and light. It was beautiful and haunting, an ancient relic of a time she could barely comprehend. She approached the hall, her footsteps soft against the ground, every sense attuned to the quiet reverence that permeated the air. As she drew closer, She saw that the entrance was flanked by two towering figures cloaked in darkness, their faces obscured, but their eyes glowing like distant stars. They regarded her with an intensity that sent a shiver through her, and as she passed between them, she felt a strange sensation, as though they were measuring her worth, weighing her heart against some ancient scale. Inside, the hall was vast and empty, its walls rippling like water touched by a gentle breeze. The silence was absolute, pressing down upon her, filling her with a sense of both awe and trepidation. It felt as though she had stepped into the heart of the realm beyond itself, a place where time held no meaning and every shadow hid a story. And then, from the depths of the hall, a figure emerged. He was tall and slender, cloaked in shadows that seemed to shift and swirl around him, revealing glimpses of stars and distant constellations. His face was partially obscured, but his eyes shone with a light that was both fierce and gentle, as though they held within them all the sorrows and joys of eternity. This was the Keeper of the Forgotten, the guardian of the gate and all the knowledge that lay beyond it. "Welcome, Princess Aria," he spoke, his voice resonant and deep, as if drawn from the very bones of the world. "You have crossed the celestial gate and entered a land where few mortals tread. But the path forward is not yet yours to walk. There is a trial you must face, a trial of shadows and secrets." Aria felt a chill settle over her, but she met his gaze without flinching. She had come this far, and she would not turn back now. "What must I do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tremor of fear that flickered through her. The Keeper raised his hand, and at his command, the shadows around her shifted, coalescing into a shape that mirrored her own form. She found herself face to face with a reflection of herself, but this was no ordinary reflection. It was darker somehow, its eyes holding a deep, sorrowful knowledge that she could not deny. "This," the Keeper intoned, "is the shadow of all that you have forgotten. Your doubts, your fears, the memories you have left behind. To continue, you must confront it, accept it as part of you. Only then will you be able to pass through the gate with a heart unburdened." Aria stared at the shadow, feeling a deep unease settle over her. In its eyes, she saw fragments of her own life, the moments of doubt and fear, the regrets she had buried, the uncertainties she had hidden even from herself. Each memory surfaced in her mind like a faint echo, a reminder of all she had left unspoken. But even as she trembled, she knew what she must do. Taking a steadying breath, she reached out her hand, her fingers brushing against the cool, insubstantial surface of her shadow. As she did, the memories flooded through her, a torrent of forgotten sorrows and hidden fears. She felt the weight of each one, but she did not pull away. Instead, she embraced them, allowing herself to feel the full depth of her own vulnerability. the scars that marked her heart. She was not perfect. She was not fearless. She was simply herself, a girl with hopes and dreams, with weaknesses and strengths, all woven together into the person she had become. The shadow softened, its form dissolving into a gentle, shimmering light that wrapped around her, filling her with a warmth that banished the lingering chill. When she looked up, the keeper was watching her, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the trial," he said softly. "Now, the path lies open before you." The hall was silent as the keeper's words faded into the shadows. Aria stood there, still wrapped in the fading warmth of the light that had been her shadow. Her own reflection transformed into something both familiar and new. She felt lighter, as though a weight she hadn't known she carried had been lifted from her heart. But she also felt a deep, stirring awareness, a strange, bittersweet understanding that she could not quite name. The keeper watched her, his gaze unblinking, as if waiting for the weight of her choice to settle. His eyes held a sorrowful wisdom, as though he had seen this moment countless times before, with countless souls who had sought the knowledge hidden within the realm beyond. "Though you have passed the trial," he said, his voice low and resonant, "the journey is not yet complete. The celestial gate demands more than a pure heart. It demands a mind willing to carry both light and shadow, to remember what was forgotten and to honor it." Aria felt a ripple of apprehension. She could sense the keeper's words pressing upon her like an unspoken challenge, and she could feel the hall shifting around her, as though the very stones were alive, attuned to her thoughts and fears. A feeling of expectation filled the air, thick and heavy, and she realized that the final trial had only just begun. From the shadows, the keeper raised his hand once more, and the air shimmered. Aria's surroundings melted away, and she found herself standing in a familiar place. Her own castle's courtyard, the very heart of the home she had left behind. It was exactly as she remembered, bathed in soft starlight, with the sound of distant music drifting through the evening air. But something was wrong. The courtyard was empty, abandoned, with an eerie stillness that filled her with an inexplicable sorrow. And then, in the corner of her eye, she saw her own form, a ghostly image of herself from years past. This younger version of Aria moved through the courtyard with hesitant steps, as if uncertain of her place. She looked lost, her expression tinged with the quiet ache of loneliness. Aria watched, a strange ache tightening her chest as she saw herself wandering alone, whispering words to the night, seeking comfort in the starlit sky. She remembered that time, the years when she had felt like an outsider in her own life, a princess bound by duty, yet yearning for something more, something she could not name, a call that had always felt just beyond her reach. "Do you see her?" The keeper's voice drifted softly into her mind, though he was nowhere to be seen. This is the shadow of your own heart, the part of you that was forgotten, the part that you left behind in search of something greater. Aria swallowed, her throat tight with the bittersweet memory. She wanted to reach out to her younger self, to comfort her, to tell her that the journey she had started that night had led her here, to the realm beyond, where stars and shadows danced in eternal harmony. But she knew she could not change the past. She could only honor it. "Why do I see this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Because this was the moment you began to forget," the keeper replied. "You buried your loneliness, your longing, your sorrow beneath layers of curiosity and determination. You sought the stars to escape your shadows, to leave behind the parts of yourself you did not wish to carry." Aria closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words. She understood now. She had thought that passing through the celestial gate would erase the emptiness she had felt, that it would bring her a sense of wholeness. But the gate was not a cure. It was a mirror, revealing the parts of her she had left behind, pieces of herself that she had abandoned in her pursuit of the unknown. Opening her eyes, she looked at her younger self with a tenderness she hadn't known she possessed. She understood now that to move forward she must embrace every part of herself, the light, the shadow, the sorrow, and the joy. She had to let go of the illusions she had clung to and accept the person she had always been, in all her imperfect beauty. Slowly she approached the ghostly image of her younger self. As she reached out, her hand trembled, her fingers brushing against the spectral form. In that instant, the image dissolved into light, a warmth spreading through her heart, filling her with a profound sense of peace. She felt her own presence solidify, a wholeness she had never known before. As though the pieces of her soul had finally fallen into place. The courtyard faded, and she found herself once more within the vast hall. The keeper was there. His gaze softened with a strange sadness, but there was also a glint of satisfaction, a quiet pride. "You have passed the trial of the forgotten," he said gently, a note of finality in his voice. "You have faced the shadows of your heart and accepted them as your own. Now, the path home lies open to you." Aria felt a sense of gratitude well up inside her, a feeling as boundless as the star-filled sky. She knew that this journey had changed her in ways she could not yet fully comprehend. She had come seeking answers, but she had found something far more precious: the strength to embrace every part of herself, to carry her own light and shadow as one. With a final solemn nod, the keeper extended his hand, and a soft glow surrounded her, a gentle light that would guide her through the gate, back to the world she had left. And as the shadows of the hall receded, Aria took her first steps toward the journey home. The realm beyond grew fainter as Aria took her final steps back toward the celestial gate. the edges of its dreamlike landscape blurring like mist touched by dawn. She felt a pang of longing as she glanced back, taking in the silver trees and rivers of moonlight one last time. This world, with all its haunting beauty and quiet, ancient mysteries, had carved itself into her heart. But she knew that her path now lay beyond it. The keeper stood at the threshold, his shadowed form blending seamlessly with the twilight around him. In his outstretched hand lay a small fragment, shimmering faintly, a piece of stardust glowing with a quiet, steady light. He held it out to her, and as Aria took it, she felt a warmth spread through her fingers, a soft pulse that mirrored the beat of her own heart. "This is a gift," he murmured, his voice like the rustling of wind through leaves. "A fragment of the realm beyond, a light that will guide you in moments of darkness. It will remain with you, bound to your heart, a reminder of what you have seen and what you have come to understand." Aria held the stardust close, feeling its warmth seep into her chest, filling her with a sense of calm. It was more than a light. It was a memory of the journey she had taken, the trials she had faced, and the truths she had accepted. She could feel it settling within her, a silent promise that would remain, a beacon of strength and clarity in the shadows of the world beyond the gate. With a final nod, the keeper stepped back, his eyes meeting hers, filled with an unspoken understanding. Aria felt words rise within her, a quiet "thank you," a farewell. But before she could speak, the gate began to shimmer, its light growing until it filled her vision with a brilliance that seemed to pierce through her very soul. She closed her eyes, surrendering to the pull of the gate as it lifted her, carrying her back through the veil between realms, back toward the world she had left. She felt weightless, as though floating on a gentle current of starlight. The warmth of the stardust pressed against her heart, guiding her through the darkness. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sensation faded, and Aria felt solid ground beneath her feet once more. She opened her eyes, finding herself back in the castle's tower. The night was silent, the stars above unchanging, yet something felt different, as though the very air around her had shifted, humming with a faint, hidden resonance. The gate was gone, its presence now just a memory, but Aria knew that it had left a mark upon her, an invisible bond that would remain long after she had stepped back into the ordinary world. The castle lay quiet beneath her, and as she looked out over the garden, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She was back, yet she was changed, as though she carried a fragment of the realm beyond within her. She touched the place where the stardust lay, feeling its warmth pulse softly, a reminder of all she had seen, all she had faced. The whispers of the stars were faint now, but they held a new meaning, a language she could almost understand. She knew that the journey she had taken was not just a passage through the gate, but a passage through herself, a journey of discovery that had led her to the heart of her own being. As dawn began to creep over the horizon, casting the world in shades of rose and gold, Aria made her way back to her chambers, her steps light, her heart quiet with a newfound strength. She felt no need to speak of her journey. It was hers alone, a secret woven into the fabric of her soul. And as she lay down, watching the first rays of light dance across the walls, she closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the stardust lull her into a gentle, dreamless sleep. In the days that followed, Aria returned to her life, but the change within her remained. She was no longer the girl who had sought the stars in search of answers, hoping that some distant realm would reveal the meaning she had longed for. She had found that meaning within herself, in the silent acceptance of her own light and shadow. The people of the kingdom noticed it too, though they could not name it. They saw it in her eyes, a calm depth that seemed to see beyond the surface of things, a quiet strength that radiated like a silent light. She became known for her wisdom, her kindness, her ability to listen to the concerns of others, with a patience that seemed drawn from a well beyond understanding. And sometimes, on clear nights, Aria would find herself standing beneath the stars, her hand resting over the place where the stardust lay, feeling its warmth pulse gently, a reminder of the gate that had once opened to her, the journey she had taken through realms both strange and familiar. The celestial gate had vanished from the sky, its outline lost in the vast tapestry of stars. But Aria knew, as she gazed up at the heavens, that it had left something behind, a mark upon her soul, a silent light that would guide her through all the realms of her life, a bridge between worlds, seen and unseen. For she had crossed the celestial gate, and though its mysteries would remain forever beyond words, its wisdom would live on within her heart, as silent and enduring as the stars.